Hey guys, what's going on? James here, and before the start of this video, I just want to say, go check out the link that I have down in the comments section below. It should be the very top comment. If you go and click on that link, it will lead you to a podcast I did with my friends Sammer, Christian, and Adam, all participating in the Loose Cannons podcast. Guys, we talked about it all, okay? We talked about the secret Tom Brady workouts. We talked about freaking chocolate bars. We talked about a lot of funny stuff, okay? It was absolutely amazing. It was a wonderful time. Thank you so much to Sammer, Adam, otherwise known as Stank, and Christian for having me on. It was freaking loads of fun, and I can't wait to do it again. So guys, please go check it out. It was so much freaking fun. Again, the link will be down in the comments section below. Hope you guys all enjoyed this video. Hey guys, what's going on? James here, and in this video today, we're going to be talking about some of the undrafted free agents that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers signed following the 2020 NFL Draft. Now, guys, I understand that this video is basically a couple of weeks old at this point, and I know some people, actually a lot of people, have been asking for this video since the end of the draft. You know, people were saying, James, you got to make a video talking about the undrafted free agent signings. And again, I apologize. I know I'm a couple of weeks late on this, much like I was with the Elliott Fry signing video, as well as the O.J. Howard fifth-year option video. But like what I said at the beginning of those videos, and I'm going to say it in this one as well, I am, taking some time here to get caught up on some videos, and just, point blank, it is going to take a little bit of, time to, generate some of these videos here, at least for the short term. So it is what it is. I will hopefully get back on track soon. But I'm still making this video because I feel it is important to talk about these guys, because at the end of the day, you never know who is going to make an impact on this team. Now, in last year's video, which was great, by the way, the response that you guys had to that video was absolutely awesome. There were a lot of interesting players. There were some players that I mentioned in the video who led on to do some interesting things for the Buccaneers, and unfortunately there were some players who didn't make the video, and the only reason was because of that was after that video was made, the Buccaneers just added maybe another guy or two who ended up making some form of impact on the team. For example, Tanner Hudson, I believe, was signed after I had made that initial free agent signing video last year. So really, it's just tough to tell with some of these things. I'm kind of debating in my mind whether or not I'm just going to make videos about all these undrafted free agent signings. I probably won't do that. I'll probably just do another group video, in the future. We'll just have to wait and see. But I do want to talk about the kind of initial grouping of guys that the Buccaneers signed following the 2020 NFL Draft. I have three guys in particular that I have put stars next to because I think they would be some very interesting guys to keep an eye on. But regardless, I do want to talk about all the other guys as well. First guy I want to talk about, Reid Senate, quarterback out of San Diego, 6'4", 225 pounds. Pretty good build for a quarterback, in my opinion. I think overall in San Diego, he did some very interesting things in college. Not exactly amazing numbers, but I think that he has a pretty good pocket awareness, has some pretty good passing ability. He's got a really good build as well. I think that he's kind of your prototypical, pretty decent college quarterback. Now, just kind of viewing his situation real quick, the question you got to ask yourself is Reid Senate really going to push Ryan Griffin or Blaine Gabbert for that third quarterback spot? In my opinion, and I know this sounds mean, and I'm going to be honest in this video, no, I don't think Reid Senate is going to be somebody who's going to push for that third quarterback spot. I think he does potentially have a future with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I think he could be a wonderful practice squad quarterback, which I think they would heavily consider, thinking back last season, the Buccaneers had multiple quarterbacks on the practice squad at different points in the year. But when I look at the Buccaneers quarterback room, it looks pretty solid in my opinion. You have Tom Brady at the top, duh. Blaine Gabbert, who I know some people have debated and said, oh, Blaine Gabbert, he shouldn't be on the team right now. You guys know me. I love the gift of Gabbert. He's absolutely awesome. And considering last year, whenever he was first signed, Bruce Arians said, in regards to a competition between Blaine Gabbert and Ryan Griffin, he said, well, you'd like to call it a competition, but it's not. It's basically Blaine Gabbert is the backup for this team, and he would have easily been the backup quarterback for the Buccaneers last year behind Jameis Winston had he not dislocated his shoulder in the preseason. Now, to take that even a step further, after Blaine Gabbert went down, Ryan Griffin, who was the third string quarterback at the time, was moved up to be the backup quarterback, and they did not sign another quarterback to the active roster for the entire year. They just said, you know what, Ryan Griffin, he did some good things in the preseason. Blaine Gabbert, we obviously prefer him, but he went down. Ryan Griffin, we think he can be a pretty decent backup, and we're fine with that, to the point where they just didn't feel the need to bring in another quarterback, and that was what it was. So I think ultimately right now the Buccaneers have a lot of confidence in Blaine Gabbert as the backup, and they have a lot of confidence in Ryan Griffin now, probably more so than what they had this time last season. I think Ryan Griffin did a lot to prove himself to this current coaching staff, and I think just factoring in Bruce Arians, already apparent love for Blaine Gabbert and maybe his newfound love for a guy like Ryan Griffin who impressed last season, I think a guy like Reid Senate, it would definitely be a big uphill climb to beat out one of those guys for a roster spot at the quarterback position. But I do think he could have a very bright future as a practice squad quarterback. Maybe they let Ryan Griffin go into free agency after this upcoming season is done. Maybe they let Blaine Gabbert go into free agency, and maybe Reid Senate could slide in at that point. But in terms of that, no, I think he's, more so a camp body, also a developmental guy for sure. Next guy I want to talk about, John Mulkin, offensive lineman out of Boise State, 6'5", 309 pounds. This will be interesting because, in terms of depth at the offensive line, the Buccaneers are very thin right now. They have a lot of unproven guys. Now, there is some interesting guys out there, right now. Joe Haeg is out there with Alex Kappa, guard. Joe Haeg can play guard and tackle. He's probably the best backup offensive lineman the Buccaneers have right now, bar none. And then in terms of, interesting guys, you have Nate Trowen at center. You have Zach Bailey at guard, I believe, among some other guys like Josh Wells at left tackle. I think that John Mulkin, if he really does prove himself, he could slide somewhere in that equation. We've seen a guy like Zach Bailey, an undrafted free agent, slide in and be some pretty valuable depth that has impressed a guy like Bruce Arians. So that could easily happen again. So just kind of keep an eye on him for backup offensive line depth. And I know it is tough to evaluate offensive linemen, but, hey, at least he has a good build at 6'5", 309 pounds. Now I want to talk about Josh Pearson, wide receiver out of Jacksonville State, 6'4", 205 pounds. This is going to be really interesting. He is going to be joining a very loaded wide receiver competition for pretty much one spot. That fifth wide receiver spot, it's going to be Justin Watson, Spencer Snell, Bryant Mitchell, Josh Pearson, and a load of other guys battling for that fifth wide receiver spot, and that should be really interesting. A lot of these guys who are getting signed as undrafted free agents or guys who are already here, like I mentioned, they're going to be like best friends with Blaine Gabbert and Ryan Griffin because they need Blaine Gabbert and Ryan Griffin to have some good chemistry with them to, obviously make them look good so they have a better chance at making this roster. So, right now you have some strong competition for that fifth wide receiver spot. Like I said, Justin Watson, Spencer Snell, Bryant Mitchell, those guys are leading the pack. And Josh Pearson, he's going to be another guy who should be an interesting piece. 6'4", 205 pounds. He's a big, pretty physical wide receiver who's got some speed as well. So definitely keep an eye on him. Nick Levert, offensive lineman out of Rice, 6'4", 310 pounds. It is what it is, much like what I said about John Mulkin out of Boise State. Interesting. We'll see. Maybe he could, potentially battle a guy like Nate Trowen for a backup center job. Although, in my personal opinion, I really enjoyed Nate Trowen last year as a center. I thought he overperformed greatly in training camp and in preseason. I thought he did a wonderful job, so that's definitely going to be a tough battle. But, these guys that I'm mentioning here along the offensive line, these guys versus some guys like Zach Bailey and Nate Trowen, that should be interesting. I think that Josh Wells, I would say Joe Haeg, and I would also say, I guess you could make a point that, Josh Wells and Joe Haeg, they're probably the two safest guys right now. So in terms of overall depth, left guard, center, right guard potentially, and potentially right tackle as well, depending on where they play Joe Haeg, that's three offensive line backup positions that could be up for grabs. So a lot of these undrafted guys do have a legitimate chance of making this roster. So I'll say his name again, Nick Levert, offensive lineman out of Rice. Keep, an eye on his name and see how he progresses. Next person I want to talk about, Javon Hagan, safety out of Ohio, 6 foot, 215 pounds. That's some pretty decent size in my opinion, okay? That's not a light build at all. That sounds like a run stopper to me, and sure enough, this guy can definitely help in the run game. Pretty decent tackler overall, in my opinion. Like his size, like his overall build, 6 foot, 215. You can't really go wrong with that. The one thing with Javon Hagan is he's going to be, again, a lot of these positions that these guys are getting signed to have some pretty intense competitions going on right now, and safety's no different. You just added Antoine Winfield Jr. You have a guy like Justin Evans returning from injury. You have Dakota Dixon, who Bruce Arians is very high on. People forget this, but Bruce Arians is quoted as saying, if Dakota Dixon would not have gotten injured last season, he would have been one of their starting safeties. That's important. That's 3 safeties I just mentioned who have starting potential. Then you switch to the other side. You have Andrew Adams, who's a phenomenal fringe starter veteran in my opinion. I absolutely love the guy. I want to see him succeed. Jordan Whitehead, who's done some great things as well. And Mike Edwards, a former 3rd round draft pick. So you've got talent absolutely everywhere along that safety position. And Javon Hagan, he's joining a very loaded group. He's another guy who I could see be, making the practice squad just from his build alone. I think that Todd Bowles would be very interested of saying, let's see if we can stash this guy on our practice squad because he's got some build, he's got some ability. Let's see what he can do after maybe a year or 2 of some grooming and then bring him in and see what he can do. But right now as it stands, man, that's an insanely competitive group. I mean, those 6 guys I just mentioned all could, and they all could and would not be surprised if they hypothetically made the roster. You would assume Antoine Winfield Jr. is making it. You would assume Mike Edwards is making it as well, along with Jordan Whitehead. So do they carry 5 safeties? If so, it's Andrew Adams, Justin Evans, Dakota Dixon, 3 guys who have phenomenal amounts of experience battling for 1 or 2 safety spots. You had Javon Hagan in there as well. It's a tough group to beat. So yeah, another loaded group, but do not count him out for a guy who could come back on a practice squad or, hey, maybe even turn some heads because the guy does have some impressive build and he does have some pretty impressive abilities as well. Next person I want to talk about, John Hearst, wide receiver out of West Georgia, 6'2", 190 pounds. Little on the lighter side for his height being 6'2", in a way. I'm not expecting the guy to be like 215 pounds and just be this absolute physical freak, but I do think that John Hearst does have a little bit more speed to him than a guy like Josh Pearson, but like I much said in the case of Josh Pearson, John Hearst, he is joining this insanely deep battle for one spot, that 5th wide receiver spot, and unless the Buccaneers just shock a ton of people and cut a guy like a Scotty Miller, which I don't think is going to happen, it is probably going to be 5 wide receivers. Why do I say 5? Because I think the Buccaneers personally are going to be carrying 4 tight ends. I think that Rob Gronkowski, O.J. Howard, Cameron Brate, and Anthony Auclair, that's 4 tight ends. That really takes away a spot from the wide receiver position. 5 guys. We already have 4 in Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Scotty Miller, and Tyler Johnson. And then that 5th wide receiver spot. And I know a lot of people point to Justin Watson. I don't even think Justin Watson's a super guarantee to make the roster at this point, guys. I think he's going to have a very big uphill battle as well. Guys like Josh Pearson, guys like John Hearst, they're not going to make that uphill climb any easier because these guys have some legitimate talent. So John Hearst, definitely keep an eye on him. Keep an eye on, Josh Pearson, a lot of these other guys at the wide receiver position as well. It should be a lot of fun. Me personally, if I just want to give my quick thoughts on this, Spencer Snell, Bryant Mitchell, those are my guys. I love both those guys. So me personally, I want to see both those 2 guys succeed. I want to see everybody succeed at the end of the day. But I think that Bryant Mitchell and, Spencer Snell, they have some legitimate, opportunities there, as does a guy like John Hearst. Next guy, Kam Gill, outside linebacker out of Wagner College, 6'3", 238 pounds. He's probably going to be an edge rushing linebacker. Little bit thin on the weight side in a way in terms of a pass rushing linebacker. Maybe you'd want to see him up at like 250, 245. It is what it is. I'm not going to nitpick that much in terms of a guy's overall build because we've seen guys with, not so impressive builds do some great things. But Kam Gill has a really interesting opportunity here in terms of being an outside pass rushing linebacker for this team. The reason for that is because with the departure of Carl Nassib and obviously the concerns with Anthony Nelson and his health, there is a legitimate opportunity here for some of these undrafted guys to make a name for themselves and really work their way into a roster spot as a backup outside pass rushing linebacker, because you would assume three guys, Shaq Barrett, Jason Pierre-Paul, they are your starters, and then Anthony Nelson, he's going to be a backup, former 4th round draft pick, he is not going anywhere. But a guy like Kam Gill, he's going to be battling some guys like Kazin Daniels. I even thought of the idea of maybe they bring back a guy like Sam Acho to compete for a backup spot, which, I mean, I would be all on board for, because I love Sam Acho. I think he's a wonderful, wonderful guy. Great for the community, great for the league. And I think that there is some legitimate opportunity here to get that one backup outside pass rushing linebacker spot. So Kam Gill, he's got some speed, he's got some bend. I like his pass rushing ability, and he's just going to continue to add to another deep battle. Him versus a guy like Kazin Daniels, that should be a lot of fun. So Kam Gill should be good. Also, you can't really count out 6th round draft pick Chappelle Russell either, who they just took. Depends on where they play him. If they play him at inside linebacker, obviously these guys don't have, much to worry about, since that's a different position. But if they decide to say, well, Chappelle Russell, we're going to move you to the outside, that makes things just a little bit tougher for a guy like Kam Gill. Next person I want to talk about, Nasir Player, defensive lineman out of ETSU, 6'5", 241 pounds. Where's he going to fit? Is he going to fit as a, pass rushing outside linebacker? He could. It seems like in terms of his overall weight, he doesn't seem like he's going to be a very big run stopper along the defensive line. So me personally, I think they're going to put him at outside linebacker. But, I guess I could see him try and take some reps at backup defensive end as well, which should be interesting. Me personally, I think he'd have a better chance competing with guys like Kam Gill and Kazin Daniels for a, outside pass rushing job. I think along the defensive line, Jeremiah Ledbetter, Patrick O'Connor is there, Raheem Nunez-Roche. Those three guys, they're pretty solid, especially Raheem Nunez-Roche and Jeremiah Ledbetter. A lot of people forget this, but last year, Jeremiah Ledbetter, in my opinion, was legitimately pushing Will Golston for his starting job. So take that for what you will. The only reason he, wasn't able to do anything last year was because flat out he got hurt. He was doing great last year. So I think along the defensive line, unless you think of maybe competing for a backup, nose tackle spot behind Vita Vea, which could be interesting, I think it's pretty much set on there, okay? Especially with the, draft pick of Khalil Davis, defensive lineman out of Nebraska, or was it Temple? I think Temple. Nebraska. It was Nebraska. Anyway, the point I'm trying to make here is that I think the defensive line is solid in terms of its starters and its depth, but you could have a legitimate chance at a pass rushing linebacker, which is where I think Nasir Player should be put. Next person I want to talk about, Benning Potea, a defensive lineman out of Washington, 6'3", 290 pounds. This is a guy who I could actually see playing along the defensive line, competing with guys like Jeremiah Ledbetter, like Patrick O'Connor, like Raheem Nunez-Roche, and we would just have to wait and see how he does. Could be really interesting. I think he does have some legitimate opportunity here. I don't know if he played with Vita Vea. I can't remember off the top of my head. I think he did, maybe for a year, but I don't know. If he did, let me know down in the comment section below, guys. That would be greatly, greatly appreciated. But you know what? Hey, if he plays anything like Vita Vea plays, a potentially former teammate of his, he should be pretty good at run defense. He should be able to give a pretty decent run at a guy like a Jeremiah Ledbetter or a guy like a Raheem Nunez-Roche. Those guys should be, a little concerned about a guy like Benning Potea out of Washington. So, yeah, just more depth, kind of more interesting guys. Like I said, the guy's a phenomenal run stopper, big body, some good bend. Not only does he have run stopping ability, but he has a little bit of pass rushing ability as well. That's fine. He's just joining a pretty interesting group. And the last player I want to talk about here before we talk about the three guys I'm most interested in is Travis Johnson, wide receiver out of Montana State, 6'4", 211 pounds. What is there really to say? Big guy, got some speed, got some decent overall ability in terms of catching the ball and some route running as well. Obviously not perfect, still needs to polish up on some things. But him, Josh Pearson, John Hearst, these guys have an uphill climb for that 5th wide receiver spot. I would say at least one of them will probably be on the practice squad if I had to guess. So, yeah, Travis Johnson, like I said, I like a lot of these wide receivers. I think that this, competition is going to be just absolutely insane. And I think a guy like Travis Johnson is just going to continue to add to that. Alright guys, now we're getting to the 3 players that I am most interested in out of this entire listing of the undrafted free agent groups. And, you know, that isn't to say I don't like any of these guys. From what you have heard here in this video, I'm probably way too optimistic about these guys' chances. And I know optimistic James strikes again, but that's just how I am, okay? I like to see players succeed. The first guy I want to talk about is Zack Shackleford, center out of Texas, 6'4", 305 pounds. And the reason I'm interested in seeing Zack Shackleford is because I watched him the entire week of the East-West Shrine game practices as well as in the game. And he did way better in the game than he did in practice, by the way, because I don't know what it was. And I may have the wrong guy, but I'm pretty sure I have the right guy. He just struggled in terms of being a center. Snapping the ball was really tough for him. And I don't know if he was just having an off week. I don't know if he was having a bad chemistry with the quarterback. That could have very easily been the case. But he struggled. And when I saw this signing and I saw a lot of people interested in him, I was very curious as to why. Now, I am willing to give him a chance. Could he push a guy like Nate Trewin for that backup center spot? Yeah, I guess he could, but the biggest thing I'm looking for Shackleford is I'm 100% hoping that I don't see a repeat in this upcoming training camp to what I saw in the East-West Shrine game practices. And that could have had a lot to do with chemistry with the quarterbacks at the East-West Shrine game practices. I'm hoping that's the case, but when I saw they signed Zack Shackleford, I was immediately interested because I'm really, really hoping he improved since the last time I saw him. And I know that's crazy for me to say, and I know it's like, whoa, James, that's a little bit negative, but I'm just telling you guys based off of what I saw before. Hopefully he has improved since then. The second to last guy I want to talk about is Parnell Motley, cornerback out of Oklahoma, 6', 178 pounds, and I know people love this guy. People absolutely love this guy. This was one of the biggest guys people wanted me to talk about, and I understand why. I was a big fan of him too when I saw that he had signed. He's going to be pretty good, I think. And for that, you know, 4th, 5th cornerback spot, that should be a very interesting opportunity for him. Because you would imagine, you know, Carlton Davis is the cornerback 1, Jamel Dean or Sean Murphy-Bunting is the cornerback 2, and then, you know, obviously cornerback 3 is the other guy who is in the cornerback 2. But after that 4th cornerback spot, you would assume MJ Stewart is the favorite, although you could make a genuine case for a guy like Mazzy Wilkins as well. And then whichever guy isn't the 4th cornerback, they're probably right now the 5th cornerback. But I think that Parnell Motley could genuinely challenge for that 4th or 5th cornerback spot. I think he's that good, and I like MJ Stewart. I think he's a good cornerback, and I think he can improve. Former 2nd round draft pick, by the way, but things haven't necessarily gone to plan as great as, you know, Bucs fans and Bucs coaching staff have wanted it to go. And that could completely change this year. He could be a phenomenal cornerback and even push a guy like a Sean Murphy-Bunting or a Jamel Dean for one of those starting cornerback spots. We just have no idea. But I think Parnell Motley versus MJ Stewart versus Mazzy Wilkins, who I'm a fan of all 3 of these guys, man, for 2 cornerback spots, that's going to be a battle. And you also can't forget John Franklin last year, who played a little bit of cornerback. He played a little bit of wide receiver. He even played a little bit of quarterback in practice, which Bruce Arians was happy with. That guy's an athletic specimen who can play both sides of the ball, and I'm very interested to see what he can do as well. And I love gadget players like that. So I'm pulling for all 4 of those guys. You know, Parnell Motley, who I just talked about, Mazzy Wilkins, who I absolutely love, MJ Stewart, and then finally Parnell Motley. That's going to be 4 really good guys battling for 2 spots, and I can't wait for that. And Parnell Motley, you know, what can you say about him? He's got the size, 6', 178 pounds. Pretty good overall as a coverage cornerback type of guy. Great in run defense, in my opinion. Pretty darn good tackler. He reminds me a lot of Mazzy Wilkins last year, where a lot of people felt, you know, loved Mazzy Wilkins, and he came out there and he just continued to be great. I think Parnell Motley could have a similar ascension in terms of his overall play and his overall rise to an opportunity for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Finally, guys, the last player I want to talk about, and arguably the guy I'm most excited for, it's Michael Divinity, linebacker out of LSU, 6'2", 242 pounds. Hey, you know, Jason Light did it. He got a linebacker out of LSU, and I'm happy that it was Michael Divinity Jr. As soon as I saw, that they had signed Michael Divinity Jr., I was fist pumping, man. I was fist pumping because I had seen him during the East-West practices, and people were glued to him, by the way. He was talking to scouts and media left, right, and center as soon as he got there. He had just come from winning a national championship, by the way, and the media wanted to talk to him. Some scouts wanted to talk to him. It was awesome to see. For pretty much the couple of days that he was there, he did come later on in the practices, but I think he flashed some in the game that he was playing in as well, and then since then I've just been in love with him, and I've been following him, and he just seems to continue to get better and better, and he's an LSU linebacker, which I'm a big fan of. I'm not a fan of LSU or anything. I just like the fact that the Buccaneers have a habit of somehow finding a way to get an LSU linebacker seemingly every year, and it's continued with Michael Divinity. I think that he's probably going to play inside linebacker. I've seen some people say that he's going to play outside pass rushing linebacker. I don't think he's going to do that. I genuinely think they're going to keep him inside linebacker, and man, that's going to be a battle because you would assume they're probably going to keep 5 inside linebackers. You would say Levante David, you would say Devin White, you would say Kevin Minter. And then after that, it gets a little interesting. You have Noah Dawkins, who the Buccaneers signed last season from the Cincinnati Bengals. He's an athletic freak. You have Chappelle Russell, who the Buccaneers just drafted in the 6th round this past draft. You then have Jack Sitchy, who the Buccaneers drafted in the 6th round a couple of drafts ago, and he's been phenomenal. He just can't stay healthy. Now you have Michael Divinity Jr., linebacker out of LSU. So holy crap, if they're battling for 2 linebacker spots, much like the cornerback position, this is gonna be good. And that's not even considering anybody else they may want to bring in and try out. And man, it's gonna be good. And with the signing of Michael Divinity Jr., I say he has a pretty decent chance to make the roster, guys, okay? And I love Chappelle Russell. I think that he can do some interesting things, be it an inside linebacker or outside linebacker. If they move Chappelle Russell to outside, I think it's pretty guaranteed that Michael Divinity Jr. would make this roster. But if they keep Chappelle Russell inside, obviously that makes things harder. But there's a lot of things going in terms of his favor for Michael Divinity Jr. He's going to be with his former teammate Devin White. He's going to be with the coaching staff who knows how to use some LSU linebackers, that being Todd Bowles. This could work out pretty well for him, and I'm excited. Larry Foote's a phenomenal linebackers coach, and he's going to be learning from a great group of guys, and he's going to have a mentor right freaking there in Devin White. So that's a lot of things favoring Michael Divinity right now, and I really think that out of all the guys I've mentioned, Parnell Motley, he's got a great shot as well, but Michael Divinity, I almost put him down as he's going to make the roster. I'm very confident in Michael Divinity Jr., so yeah, take that for what you will, guys. But guys, that is going to be the end of this really long video. I love doing these videos every year. Sorry, you guys seem to enjoy them as well. Let me know if I missed any undrafted free agent signings down in the comments section below. And what do you think about all the guys that I mentioned? What are some of the guys that you like, and what do you like about them? What are some of the guys that you don't like, and what do you not like about them? And how do you think some of these position battles are going to go? And I just want to say this. You guys have been giving phenomenal analysis down in the comment section. Long threads of comments that I've been very happy to read, that you've been giving your thoughts on some of these players and some of these, situations that have been happening, and I absolutely love reading them. Please keep them up. I think that it is absolutely awesome that we've been able to build a community with this much analysis. I think it's great, and I love all the takes that you guys have been giving. But guys, that's going to be it for this video. Again, thank you so much for watching. Let me know what you think about all this down in the comment section below. But guys, until the next video or the next live stream, I'll see you guys in the next one. But until then, and as always, guys, goodbye for now, and go Bucs.